Hey, check it. Hey, check it. Put the place up.
All right. Welcome back, boys. It is week 4. But before we move on to that, let's take a look back at week 3. Your fearless commish once again getting a win, going 2-1 on the season. Game went pretty much as predicted in terms of total score. I said Yahoo was off and it was going to be closer than expected. Came down to Monday night, so happy about that. But let's not forget I had some misses. I specifically said, guaranteed actually, that Joshua Kelly was going to score a touchdown because Minnesota's defense is terrible. And San Diego, my bad, the Chargers, were going to put it up. They were going to score some points. Well, we got that. Herbert had 47 passes, completed 40, looking good. And Joshua Kelly scored all of 2 points. It was all through the air. Needless to say, Kelly is not Eckler, so I totally missed that one. So that did have a little bit of an effect on the game. I thought he'd do better, but Chad ends up winning anyway. He did win by 10. Now, the other one that I missed, I said Kenneth Walker couldn't possibly have 2 touchdowns this week. He's playing a team that just is going to cap his upside. Seattle's just going to run and kill the clock. There's no way he can blow up. The game script's just not going to happen. Well, he did. They were able to put up some points. I think the final score was 37-32. Did not see that coming. Walker had to score to keep him in the game. He had a very good game, so I totally missed that one too, which did end up helping out Cameron. So that kept it close. But kind of as predicted, going to the last couple, what hurt Cameron, I said Waddle was going to have a big week, but he was out. I said he would feast. Unfortunately, he did not play. And the Dolphins put up 70. I have to assume that Waddle would have made a difference because Braxton Berrios ended up started in his place. I think it was Braxton. But he had 5 points. So, I mean, I have to assume Waddle could have made the difference. He lost by 10. Like I said, close call, but have to assume that would have happened. The other thing that I think I got right, or pretty close to right here, I called the quarterbacks here. I said Jimmy G couldn't possibly be better than 202, something along those lines. But he was pretty good. He's had up over 300 passing yards. Well, there's a reason for that. He threw 3 picks because he's not good. When you throw 3 picks, you got to put up the passing yards. Otherwise, you're not going to be in the game. Jameis Winston has proven that with his 5,000-yard season and 30 picks. So he technically was better than I expected in terms of yards. The picks hurt him. He's a little better total point-wise. But where I thought the edge would be in the game was Mahomes. And he did exactly as expected, scored 30+. That's what we thought would happen. I think he kicked Yahoo's projection by a few points. But where I think I really got it right was Daniel Jones. I said, bench him, start C.J. Stroud. That's what happened. C.J. Stroud, unfortunately, was playing our Jags and had a great week. So while I got it right, I'm sorry I did. And then I guess the last one here, I said if Kittle if Ayuk isn't playing, Kittle would have a good game. I don't like Kittle if Ayuk is playing, and that turned out to be a good call there too. So that was the week in review, probably a 50-50 in terms of my calls, but got the game right, so we're 2-1 on the season. Moving on to this week. This is our game of the week. It has been talked about since roughly, I don't know, first week of the season, something like that, when Mike and Jose were talking about their trade. Mike said, look, Russ isn't good. Jose says Russ is good. That went back and forth for a little while, so we have got Mike and Jose playing each other. Jose said, I can't wait to play you week 4. Well, here it is. So Mike of the Shannon Sharks, Jose of the newly named the Fantasy Bastards, because he traded away Fields. So we will talk about that in a minute. But both are in the Yoba-Goya division. They are 1-2. Jose has total points on Mike, but both are 1-2, so they both really need to win in the division. So we will kind of move on to quarterbacks. This, I think, is going to make or break kind of the whole breakdown. Mike has Burrow, and he plays Tennessee. as mentioned almost every week on this podcast, Tennessee allows you to pass the ball. They do not allow you to run the ball. So, I don't know. Is he going to play and be good? He hasn't been. I have to think if he gets it going against anyone, it's going to be Tennessee. I really don't know how to call this. So we'll see. Your guess is as good as mine with Burrow. Now moving on to Deshaun. Deshaun gets Baltimore. Deshaun did show up last week, had 28 points. Baltimore kind of banged up, though, in the secondary. Over half their secondary is out. I said that Cooper would have a good game last week, and he did for Cleveland, mostly because he played Tennessee. So, again, Burrow hopefully should also be able to take advantage. But he is definitely a wild card. So I think Deshaun versus banged-up Baltimore has a pretty good game. We'll see on Burrow. Moving on to Jose. Jose is the no Fields go time after a few underperforming weeks. He has traded Fields away. He is going with his backups. He has Stafford and Russ in as the starters. Chicago plays Denver this week. I really looked forward to previewing Denver or Russ versus Fields in the game against each other, but that is not happening. But just to note, Chicago has allowed 1,200 yards of passing. So the Chicago defense, they are number 3 in the worst allowed. Denver is 1,370, and they are the number 1 worst passed defense. Half of that, though, was given up against Miami. So I don't know how to analyze that. Miami just kind of destroyed them, and that one game is going to throw off stats for a while. So I'm going to say Chicago's passing defense, is much worse than Denver's, in my opinion. They have been bad. Jose got out of the Fields business for a reason. I just think they're totally dysfunctional. So I imagine that if Russ has anything left, he gets Chicago. This is the week for him to show it. The matchups are definitely in Jose's favor. I mean, I think Russ can get 250 and 2. I mean, it should happen if he is any good, and he has been putting up the ball. They have not been able to run it successfully, although in a game where they got beat 70-20, they still couldn't really pass the ball. Yeah, that Sean Payton is like the greatest coach ever, and this offensive mastermind is not looking good right now. But Stafford's on the other side. Stafford has looked great. I think Stafford is back. He's healthy. Going into the season, I did not think that was going to happen. So good for Stafford. I'm glad to see him back. But, I don't know. He's just doing what he does. I don't think he, does anything spectacular, but I don't think he's bad either. So I think you got 2 very solid starters here, and they get the double stack. Stafford has Puka, and Russ has Sutton. So Fields gets both of those as his starters. So, like I said, I think Jose has a very good shot here to have a good quarterback outing. Mike with Deshaun, I think, does too, and I just don't know about Burrow. So for my edge here, I'm going to go Jose, but this is clearly the wild card of this matchup, and Burrow could frankly decide the entire outcome. But we'll move on to the wide receivers since I already mentioned them and go with Jose's. Jose's receivers are pretty good. He managed to cobble together some decent receivers via trade. Sutton has been performing for Denver, even if Russ hasn't been great. He hasn't been terrible, and he has been throwing it to Sutton. So Marvin Mims kind of the second option. Jerry Jeudy has been the third. So Sutton consistently putting up good weeks and gets a terrible defense, arguably the worst defense in the league. Think Jose could see some points there. And then Puka, we've got every single big free agent that has been spent on performing. It was Puka week 1. I got Ford week 2. He did just fine. I don't know. Puka seems to be the guy while Cup's out. I have no idea what will happen when Cup comes back, but he's getting the targets. Whether it be a good defense or not, he's getting the targets. He's playing well. Even last week was a, quote, down week, and he still had a solid week in every PPR league. Cooper, is Deshaun's target, so a little canceling out there on the sides. But again, he gets Tennessee, so like last week, Cooper again should have a good week, as I predicted last week. So I imagine that will happen. I'm sorry, he plays Baltimore, and like I predicted last week with Tennessee, it's banged up secondary. I think Cooper should be good. What I think the gem is here is Pittman. Michael Pittman was kind of an afterthought in a lot of the trades that Jose made early in the season, mostly because I don't think anyone thought Anthony Richardson would be throwing the ball very much and that would be running. Anthony Richardson wasn't throwing a ton, but he was throwing more than expected, and they were really running a heavy RPO offense where Pittman was the only target. Like, it was you throw it to Pittman or you tuck it and run, and he was throwing it, surprisingly, just definitely to my surprise. So I've already talked about the first three, but like I said, Pittman is really the guy that I think helps solidify this core of four receivers. I mean, it's a very consistent group, even if the ability to have like a blow-up week isn't very high. I mean, I guess Puka could. I think they're all very solid. So I think Jose has got to find in Pittman, and has made a couple trades to get a couple other, and spent a bunch of fab to get a good group here. So I think this is a good area for Jose. On the opposite side, I can't say the same for Mike. I said, in the draft review, I did not like Scary Terry and DJ Moore. I still don't. Scary Terry gets Philly, though. DJ Moore gets Denver. He is starting the rookie Addison. He gets Carolina. And his big gun is A.J. Brown against Washington. I just don't think Terry and Moore are going to get enough volume. Terry scored last week. We'll see what happens. Philly's secondary has been bad. They have been injured. They have a great run defense, but that's mostly because teams have just been passing against them. So that's where your hope is if you're Mike. But Howell did not look good at all. He really came down to earth last week. So we will see what happens there. I will say with an implied 18-point total for Washington, I don't have a lot of hope. DJ Moore, do I need to talk more about Fields and how terrible he is? I don't know, man. I would bench more. I would probably bench more and start like a free agent tight end in my flex spot over DJ Moore at this point. I just have no confidence at all in Fields' ability to pass the ball. So I would look somewhere else if I were Mike. So he is hoping that McLaurin gets in some catches, and then where his two advantages, or not advantages necessarily, but two scoring point abilities is with Addison, who gets Carolina. Carolina might have 6 starters out, 6 defensive starters, and Kirk Cousins, surprisingly not Tua, leads the league in passing yards. I mean, every single week, all they're doing is putting up the ball. They are not running at all. If Addison doesn't get 5 catches, it would be surprising. He might get 7 or 8. I mean, you give him that much volume, he should do okay. Carolina's pass defense is a bottom 10. And like I said, bottom 10 and have those starters out. You got to hope if you're Mike, you're getting something out of Addison way more than the Yahoo projection is giving you. And then much like last week, A.J. Brown had a huge week. You're hoping A.J. Brown just does what he does and gets another big week for you versus Washington. They've been middle of the road. The defense was anticipated to be better. They have not been. They have just been fine. I think 75-1 is probably expected, I think, for A.J. So I got to give the edge here to Jose. Just think his core of receivers is just better, just more consistent, where Mike has more of an ability to kind of have a couple blow-ups. So I'll take Jose in that prediction there. Moving on to the running backs, Jose has Mixon versus Tennessee and Swift versus Washington. Swift has 130 yards in back-to-back weeks. Week 1 doesn't really count because I think he only had like 1 carry. He didn't really play. But back-to-back weeks, 130 yards. Again, Washington, middle of the road. I don't think Washington scores that much, like I was saying, as a concern for Terry McLaurin. But if Washington isn't scoring, then I don't know why Swift's going to be in the game. He split carries last week with Gainwell. He is clearly fragile. Gainwell is not. I think if Philly gets up, Swift does not have a 100-plus yard week again. Obviously, he wouldn't have any catches because he wouldn't need to have them, and Hurts doesn't really throw the running back anyway. So I don't know that Swift does what he has the past couple weeks. If for some reason Washington does find a way to score, I could eat some crow there, but I just don't think that's going to happen. Now, in the other game, if Burrow gets going, I mean, I have to think that against Tennessee, you are not going to try to run with Mixon. That is the game for Burrow to get something going. So if Cincy wins, it's on the back of Burrow. It is not on the back of Mixon versus a very good running defense. So I would, I would say that Jose does not have a great backfield this week. But moving over to Mike, we have got James Conner. Fortunately, he plays San Fran. And then you got Brian Robinson, also versus Philly. So a lot of these games are intersecting with each other. I just talked about Philly. They have the number one run defense in the league. So I don't know how the number one run defense doesn't get it done against Robinson in Washington. I just think that they're going to try to pass. So if you're Mike, Terry and Robinson, I don't know how you're maxing out your point total there. I think you got to make a bet and start Terry and hope that he does well and find someone else to start. I don't know what your bench looks like, but anyway, I just think your total points are limited there. So while I said Tennessee was good, Philly's number one. Well, we move on to Connor. Connor gets the number 3 rush defense in San Francisco. Just not a good week at all for Mike in terms of matchups. Connor gets all the work in Arizona. It is clearly an offense that is running through him right now. And funny, I guess, Dobbs' legs. He has had some good runs. I'm cheering for Josh Dobbs. I don't know. Connor's good. He gets the work. I'm going to guess he gets a touchdown. But I don't know. I both of these groups, do I have to pick one? I guess I'll take Mike. I like Connor. But, man, I don't like any of these running backs. That is a tough group with the matchups today or this week. All right, moving on to tight end, the last group. We've got Jose with Njoku. I don't know, man. I don't know why you're starting Njoku and Cooper. I can't imagine both of them have good weeks. Njoku's not been very good. I don't even think he deserves a roster spot, let alone a start. So I don't care who Mike starts. I'm not taking Njoku. On the other side, Mike has opposite. He's a number 4 tight end on the year, Evan Ingram. While Jacksonville has disappointed, Ingram has been Mr. Consistent. He's basically 5 for 50 every week. So he's looking, he's actually a little bit better than that. So I think he's been pretty good, and he gets Atlanta in London, the 4th worst pass defense against tight ends. I think Ingram gets it going. I think the Jags always play well in London, so I'm going to guess that he's involved in that passing game, and we'll see what happens. So with that being said, Jose, I think a big edge at receiver. I don't know who to guess at running back. I'll give Mike the tight ends. So I think that this comes down to Jose's edge at receiver. I just think he has a big edge there, and his quarterbacks are solid. Mike needs Burrow to win this week. He really needs him to come out and throw 3 touchdowns. If he gets another week like he had, this whole season, I don't think Mike has a shot. He needs Burrow and Deshaun to really come to give him an advantage, because I just think Jose has a big advantage at receiver. So I am picking Jose to win this battle in the Yobagoya division. And that's about it for this week. Hope everybody enjoyed. Right at 20 minutes again. I'm trying to keep it to 15, but I promise I will do a better job next week. Peace out.
Put the place up, yeah we know what we made of.